everyone and welcome to Dueling with Downton, and today let's talk about episode 37 of the Yugioh Sevens anime series. An episode, in my opinion, that was one of the weakest episodes within the Yugioh Sevens franchise. As we have Rook versus Dubrap in this episode and a lot of comedy involved. And if you didn't like the comedy in this episode, then you're in for a real nightmare. For me, the comedy just didn't land, as it didn't serve any purpose. In fact, for me, it negatively affected the characters that were involved. Those, of course, relating to the characters of Rook and Chevelle. I'll explain a lot more in a minute as to why I think they negatively affected the characters, but there were some positive points within this episode, so let's start off by talking about some of those as we start with the character of Rook. Seeing that he took responsibility for being tricked, thus leading our group into their current situation, was a big plus in my opinion. It shows good characterization from Rook's character, and it gained a lot of respect towards him from myself. And the fact that he is self-aware and knows when people are making fun of him is also a good insight to the character in learning about what he does perceive from others and what he doesn't perceive from them. I like the return of the psychological battle that Rook had to face, even if it was a rinse and repeat of the Schrodinger fight way back in that particular episode, where basically Rook felt like he couldn't move forward. He didn't know what to do. Dubrap was countering everything that Rook was doing with trap cards. So Rook was spiraling into his own mind, making it believe that he couldn't win the duel or that nothing he did would work, until Yugioh brought him out of this mindset. And the reason as to why I like this was because it builds building blocks for development for Rook's character. As I personally do think Rook is in need of some good development to give his character something fresh, something different, as the comedy and the idiocy that comes with that from Rook's character makes him look weak outside of dueling. And for me, that just ruins the character in general. I used to like Rook a lot, but now I just don't like him at all. And honestly, some good, solid, focused development, some new features for his character would really help boost the character back up in just general. I'd love to see Rook in a similar situation to where he's spiraling into a state of helplessness and has to prove that he can overcome these issues without help from Yuga, Roman, or Gakuto, as this would help cement and prove that he has a strong will and that he has a lot of determination towards his goal of becoming King of Duels. Or adding an element from episode 27 into the mix, making it a bit more of a darker route for Rook's character. Remember, he had to face his inner self, who seemed like a darker version of himself. And the current Rook could spiral into a very dark place midway through a duel, giving us a semi-berserk mode for Rook's character, where that darker version of himself appears and takes over, adding an aggressive style to his dueling abilities, as well as making Rook a unique character by basically being the first rival slash friend character to have a berserk-like state if they were to go down that route. I think this would be fresh, unique, and really cool for Rook's character, and something I personally would love to see. Another disappointing part of the episode was Chevelle. I really did not like his personality. I was hoping for more of a serious personality. Not serious in terms of dark or violent, but more so in the way that he believes that he is right. Throughout the series so far, this arc, he's displayed personality traits of being stern and strict. He's always telling people off who are very direct towards Asana. He's always telling Garlean off for almost breaking the rules against his duel with Gakuto. So we know that Chevelle has a lot of authority. He's an authoritative figure within the Duel Machine Cavalry Club. And yet this episode does a 180 on that completely, making him silly, goofy, comedic, and immature. His and Duvrap's backstory was very nice and wholesome. I liked it. That added element to the episode, added a bit more emotion, a bit more depth into the episode. It gives us reason as to why he wants to help Asana. After all, she saved them. That's respectable. So it's very well built up in that respect, and it adds more layers to the character in that regard. So for that, okay, decent. Plus, the relationship between Chevelle and Duvrap was portrayed in a well presented manner. The two may fight and squabble and be at odds with each other, but at the end of the day, they are best friends. And this was driven home very nicely and presented very effectively. Now, Chevelle does come across as a character that wants to prove that he's changed and grow out of his crybaby ways. But to me, he just comes off as being more childish and immature. So he hasn't really grown at all, if I'm being honest with you. But that's just the vibe I've gotten. He wants to prove that he has overcome his crybaby persona and become a mature and a reliable person. But reliability goes out the window when you lose to Rook, and you know, you're the reason as to why your side failed the duel or lost the duel. And, you know, acting immature doesn't really show that you've grown out of your crybaby state. That's just the way I perceived it anyway. You may think differently. If you do, I'll be interested to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. The duel itself offered something new and fresh, as we got to see a plethora of new monsters. Rook's Ice Dragon looks really cool. And his cute dragon, yeah, reminded me of a Digimon. But going back to Rook's character just ever so quickly, I really did like the outro with Rook, where he was making plushies of his dragons. And we do see like the statues of the dragons in episode 27, but seeing that he makes plushies out of them is cute, wholesome, and just goes to show how much he loves and respects his dragon-like monsters. So that was a really cool added element and adds a bit more personality to Rook, which I liked. Great. Plus, Dove Trap using a lot of trap cards was a good change of style. Something that we haven't really seen within Yugioh Sevens so far. So that added that freshness and that good feeling, making the duel a bit better than most duels that we've seen recently. But one would say this was also a bit of a missed opportunity to not use Trap Hole. Of course, whether being a part of the Dual Cavalry Machine Club, they like digging, so digging holes, trap holes. They missed out really, really badly. Oh well, would have been cool to see it. Now, a handful of jokes did make me laugh in this episode, like the one where they said, "Luke, I am your father," or the expressions on Yuga, Roman, and Gakuto. Their expressions and their distaste towards the cringy comedy that was being shown was exactly my reaction as well while watching it. The comedy at the beginning was very cringy, and actually throughout the entire episode it was cringy and hard to watch at most times. Another funny joke was the One Piece reference, where Yugioh was basically saying, "Oh, I've got lots of weird friends, and you're one of them. You have a dream to become king of duels," or something. You know, you can just imagine it was a One Piece reference, because the way that Yugioh says it was similar to how Luffy says, "Kaiser Colony, Ole wa now," which is, "I'm going to become king of the pirates." So yeah, the comedy wasn't that good because the jokes just didn't land for me most of the time. It made me feel cringy and awkward, and I didn't really want to watch the episode if the comedy was going to keep up at that kind of pace and that type of level. So that's the problem I had. The comedy outweighed the plot. It didn't do anything for the plot. It negatively affected the characters, in my opinion, and it ruined my enjoyment of the overall episode itself. However, it does look like we are getting Asana versus Yugioh round number 2. And things might not go smoothly for Yugioh, because we see his expression in the next episode preview and it looks quite horrified and quite shocked. So hopefully this means something surprising is going to happen from Asana's character. And if things don't go to plan for Yugioh, I'm not going to be upset by it. I'm going to actually be pretty happy, because at the moment this arc feels rushed. The characters and the plot have not been built up enough to kind of establish Asana to be a threat or anything of the sorts. So I would love it if they have this second duel and Yugioh loses. Yugioh losing to Asana builds up Asana, builds up the Machine Cavalry Club again, establishing them as more of a threat and someone who can actually utterly crush rush dueling. Because Asana has been way too lax so far. Like, is she just that overconfident in her maximum summoning? Or is there more going on? Like, does she have another trick up her sleeve if maximum does not work? We'll have to wait and find out. But it does offer a little bit of a hopeful surprise to come. Overall, that's all I've got to say for this episode. If I could go on and be a bit more negative and more ranty, but I don't really want to do that because that would be a discredit to Sevens. Yugioh Sevens has been a great anime series so far. It's just there has been a handful of episodes that have been pretty weak. This one, of course, is one of them. Well, that's my opinion. You may think differently. And of course, I want to know your opinions in the comment section down below. So make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for more Yu-Gi-Oh content on a weekly basis, and of course, let me know your thoughts as well. I'll speak to you next time. Have a great day. Alligator matane. Goodbye.